Hey guys, Lonnie here, and I wanted to take a minute to just do a recap on a conversation I've had several times in this last week that I thought might be helpful if I put a few graphics to it and just made a super simple show here on how to win the website race, and specifically talk about why most people end up very sad before they even get to the track and don't make it to the track when it comes to the website race. So I'm just going to jump through a couple things here to show you what are the steps, what are the basic things that you need to do to get a website built, things you need to consider, and put them in the proper order. There's a little bit of overlap in some of these steps, but I wanted to just put this together so you have a little frame that you can use if you're building your website, if you're using it for charity or your business or personal use. This will give you an idea where to start, what to look at, and I'm not going to do a deep dive in any of these things today because that would take 3 hours, but I'm going to give you a quick recap at the end that'll just help summarize this and maybe get it solid in your mind on where to start and what you need to do to win the website race. So let me get going here. So the first thing you need to do, of course, with a website, and most of you know this, but this is super simple, is to, if you're imagining this as a racetrack and a car is going to be on a race, what would you start with? Well, in the case of a website, you need to have yourname.com, right? So maybe it's pennzoil.com or yourbusiness.com or mymedicalpractice.com, roofers.com, whatever that is, you need to go register that name. And as you probably are aware, sometimes it's not available. .com isn't available, but .net or some other extension might be available. Some of the places that you can go to do that are GoDaddy, Ionos, Namecheap. We've used Ionos for years before we use our current site and service, and they did fine for us, but I think there's a lot better ones than we started out with, and there's different benefits that you want to look into. So that's the very first starting step. I'm not, like I said, not going to get into a lot of detail on each of these. There's things that we should do. What I'll do is I'll just come back and do a separate session on each of these and actually help you out as far as how do you choose which domain name you should use. Does it matter? What's the price differences? You can do a lot of this research just by Googling it. But I have found that if you get set up at the beginning with the wrong services, it can kind of be a pain later. So just making sure you get with solid companies up front is helpful. So what's the next step? Well, coming up with a website creator software is the normal next step. If you have a really elaborate site, you might need a custom designer that's going to build a wireframe type design system where they're actually creating more from scratch. But a lot of websites for basic service companies such as medical practices, home services, those type of things, they're using templates. You might have heard of Squarespace or Wix. We prefer WordPress for a variety of reasons that I'm not going to get into here, but we prefer that for speed and for bounce rate, for SEO optimization, for great quality templates, make sure that they're always updatable. So we really like a lot of the designers behind WordPress sites. Now there is a whole bunch of them within WordPress. There's specific ones that we like for specific reasons. Again, I'm not going to get into that now, but I just want to let you know that that's usually the next step, and there's a few ways to look at that. We have built on Squarespace. We've used those before. Just summarize it now to say we prefer WordPress for a variety of reasons. So start with your domain name, get it registered, get a WordPress creator, and of course you need somebody, if you don't know how to use those softwares, let's say you're building a house and you don't know how to use AutoCAD or create the drawings, you hire an architect. Well, with a website, I recommend highly that you get somebody that recognizes good graphics, understands basic web design, knows how to use it, and you want to look into things like, are they going to be around next year if I need to make a change? That can be a real pain if they create something for you and then it's just a friend and they go away and they move and they're no longer doing it because they got another job. So maybe finding a company that's going to be around for a while to make changes in the future is important. Or if you're going to do it yourself, it's actually simple enough for you to use. The next thing is, where are you going to park this new race car that you're building, your website? So what's the garage? Well, that's the hosting location, and there's companies that do that as well. Now, I will tell you that some of these things are all in one. Squarespace, for instance, has a lot of these. They have the hosting. In fact, it's required that you park your website with them and their hosting location. So some of them require that. Again, that's not necessarily, I don't think that's necessarily an upsell for me with Squarespace, but I understand people that like it all in one spot. That's fine. But I think there's some advantages if you look at some others. Just some other names, for instance, Cloudflare, Ionos, Bluehost, SiteEngine are just a few. There's a lot of them to choose from. And like I say, some of them overlap that they might provide one or more of these services. So you're done with that. You've got all those three things done. You've got a great creation team. They built your race car. It's ready to go. It looks great. And this is the part that usually makes people very sad. And I'll tell you why in just a second after I finish up the last two steps. But this is the part that's, people have spent a lot of money on a nice website. It looks good. When we used to build these kind of websites, they look aesthetically very pleasing, but they didn't get the job done as far as the race itself, and that is SEO. So that's the next part of winning the website race, is knowing what SEO is, understanding it, having a team helping you with it, doing your own research, whatever you have to do to understand it, because this part, the break between building that site and understanding SEO, is where the wheels fall off and where the job doesn't get done. A lot of people get the site built and then they don't even get to the race. So the final step is really having a team. If you imagine Indy 500 race, if you didn't have a team that was on the track evaluating site conditions, what's the tarmac look like that day, what's the track look like, what's the temperature, what's the humidity, is it raining, all those things, you'd never expect a successful race out of a car, right? Unfortunately, a lot of people think that getting a website built and designed is just a static event. Well, there, I finished it, now I'm done, and it's just going to race on its own. And unfortunately, it's just not that simple. I wish it was, because like I said, 10 years ago, we were building sites and we were running into this problem ourselves. We would get the site completed, and then we'd realize it wasn't driving business. And there's reasons for it. And I believe that this is why. This is the thing that you need to understand. You need to ask the right questions at the beginning of the race. So what are those questions? Why do most people not even end up on the track with their beautiful new race car / website? So the question I think that most people start is, hey, can somebody build me a website? Or can I need to build a website. And maybe they shouldn't start with that question. I'd say that's the wrong question. I think it'd be better to start with questions like, well, who determines the winner of the website race? That would be good to know. Well, when it turns out, when it comes to website performance, Google is the main judge, right? So Google is the judge who sets the rules of the track, determines the race and the winner and who does well. So it'd be really good to understand what those rules are if you're going to win the race of a website. Other questions might be, how long is the race? How long is it going to take to get this site and this car running and tuned up? How much time should I plan for maintaining this site? Determining your goal probably before anything. What do I want this site for? What's it supposed to do? Is it supposed to drive business? How much business do I want it to drive? Does it matter? I would say it matters a lot. You really want to take care of those questions first. Even asking the question, do I need a website? I talked to someone earlier today, and they're asking if we could fix a site or complete a site, and we get a couple calls like that every week, pretty common. And we can do that. We have a team that can do it. But a better question is, what do you need the website to do? A lot of times there might be a less expensive way to get your goal than a website. Or maybe the website you have is just fine, and we need to talk about what's it supposed to do, what can we optimize, or is there other less expensive ways that get a higher return on investment than fixing your website? So you just want to have those conversations and think through that first. Is there a faster way to win the race? So if you combine the knowledge of those questions and several more, and you create a plan, then you get a win. That's how the people that we know and work with end up getting the success that they want out of their website race with their business. So if they have a specific number of clients that they're trying to drive with the website and they know how to convert them, they have a system to track those people. They have different magnets in different places tying that website to the different races like social media, maybe YouTube, the different places where the races are happening for attention for your website. Then you're actually set up to have a much higher likelihood of a success. And I'll tell you a little music story. When I first recorded a music CD several years ago, I started asking the question like, what's a producer do? And what does an engineer do? And what kind of recording studio do I need? Because I knew I wanted to make music, I just didn't know how the process worked. But one of the main questions that I asked that turned out to be really important for our band at the time was, if I'm going to hire somebody and spend a lot of money to do this, there's one thing that I wanted to know. There was just one question at the time. I wanted to know if they had a hit on the radio. Had they ever produced a hit on the radio? Well, why would I ask that question? Well, because I was dropping some money down, and it wasn't cheap, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't wasted. So, I had a lot of people telling me, hey, dude, come in. You can just come in. I'll record you, make a nice CD. And some of them I think would have done a fine job, but there was a lot more I found out to producing and understanding the market or the racetrack for music that I wanted someone else to understand, because the one thing I knew is I didn't know everything I needed to know. So I wanted to be involved with a producer at that time that could actually help me. And we made just by the grace of God, a great decision with that. We chose someone from Nashville who was in the race all the time, every day. He was getting wins, he was getting stuff on the radio, and by including him in our project, we ended up getting wins that we were hoping to get. And I think it's probably the single most important decision that we made in anything as far as how to deliver our music to the people that we thought might want to hear it. So in the same way, I would recommend if you're going to spend money on a website or on marketing in general, one of the questions you might want to ask is, hey, who have you worked with before? What's the track record? Have they ever won? Did they ever achieve the goals that I'm trying to? And if not, you might just want to pause. And if you understand the process well enough that you've directed that yourself, you've produced those wins yourself, and you already understand it, then you could probably just go hire somebody very inexpensively, build the website, and you could do all the rest yourself with the maintenance, the optimizing. But those are some of the issues that come up. I hope that's helpful. I didn't get into the specifics of SEO. There's literally over 100 points that our team handles with these things. As when it comes to SEO and making sure that your site is operating properly, we have people that are full-time just paying attention to the rules of the game with Google and understanding those rules. So when we approach a client, we try and walk through these questions just in a logical way that makes sense for them and us to see if there's a good match. And maybe there's somebody better. This afternoon I talked with a friend and I just recommended that he worked with this other gal who I think does a great job and will help him finish up a project he was on. And he didn't need to work with us. So, you can relax. I'm not interested in pushing anyone to work with us if it's not a match and doesn't make sense for you. But if we can help you out and answer some of those questions, I would love to do it. So I hope you guys have a great day and I hope that helps. Talk to you later.